स्वागत है आप सभी का आपके अपने चैनल लर्न नीट IIT JEE with बबीता पर. So today I am back with another chapter of biology that is none other than the breathing and exchange of gases. So the chapter is going to be quite important from NEET point of view, so please do not try to skip any point out of the whole class, whole session. And please do note each and every point in your notebook so that it can help you. Again, as usual, I would like to say the same thing. If you like the video, please do like it, share and subscribe. Subscribe for your own purpose so that you can see it, you can be benefited by it anyways. And don't be so selfish as not to share with your friends and your mates who are in your own class, who are in your own age, so that they can be benefited by my channel as well. So let's proceed without wasting time, as it is gonna be a very important session. तो फ्रेंड्स, जैसा कि आप देख पा रहे हैं, ब्रीथिंग एंड एक्सचेंज ऑफ गैसेस क्लास 11th का सबसे मेन चैप्टर है. इट्स नॉट जस्ट इन क्लास 11th, हर साल नीट में भी इससे एक दो क्वेश्चन ज़रूर पूछा जाता है. एंड MBBS में जाने के बाद इसके ऊपर आपको पूरा एक चैप्टर पढ़ना पड़ता है. Especially it's important for those doctors who want to specialize in breathing issues and all. So without wasting time, let's start with our breathing and exchange of gases. But chapter start करने से पहले I would want you to know about some key definitions, क्योंकि जब भी breathing और exchange of gases का नाम आता है, इन definitions की बात ज़रूर आती है. इनके बगैर breathing, respiration सब अधूरा है. Breathing and exchange of gases is literally the same thing as you all know, क्योंकि respiration होता है जिसमें हम बॉडी उस एयर को, उन गैसेस को कैसे यूटिलाइज करती है for the formation of food nutrients in the body. But breathing is not more than exchange of gases. It's just exchange of CO2 and oxygen, and that's it. So हम स्टार्ट करते हैं हमारे उन की टर्म्स के साथ जिनकी अभी मैं बात कर रही थी. So first of them is pulmonary ventilation. First of all, we have pulmonary ventilation. So pulmonary ventilation, as you can see, is made up of two words, not one, in which this ventilation refers to gaseous exchange and pulmonary refers to related to our lungs. So gaseous exchange takes place in lungs. So pulmonary ventilation means gaseous exchange taking place in our lungs, which refers to nothing more than inhalation and exhalation. These are the two key events in exchange of gases. Inhalation means taking air inside a body, and exhalation means forcing out air out of a body. In human beings, inhalation and exhalation is some specific gases. So inhalation is the intake of oxygen. So it's the intake of oxygen, and exhalation, it is the forcing out of CO2. Along with this oxygen and CO2, we have other gases as well, but we pay importance to just O2 and CO2. That's because CO2 is formed inside a body, and it is not useful to our body, but it is harmful. And oxygen is needed by our body. The whole mechanism we are going to learn a little while later, so you need to have patience for that. So the next key term we have is internal respiration. You guys must be thinking that the chapter is about breathing and exchange, then why respiration? So this is just given the name of respiration. It is actually the gaseous exchange between blood capillaries and alveoli of lungs. As you studied in your previous classes, that gaseous exchange in a blood takes place through small sac-like structures known as alveoli. So external respiration is the respiration between gas exchange between blood and alveoli of lungs. Before that, we have internal respiration. That is the gaseous exchange between tissues, gaseous exchange between tissue cells of body, between tissue cells and blood capillaries. Blood doesn't form oxygen on its own. It's not an oxygen producer, means it is not a producer. So where does it actually get oxygen from? So for that we have external respiration. The definition I dictated to you not more than a minute ago. So in external respiration we have gaseous exchange, again like internal respiration, but it is between blood and the alveoli of lungs, between blood and alveoli of lungs. Literally, what is more important than these sites of occurrence of internal and external respiration is the actuality that in internal and external respiration, no respiration heretofore takes place, but actually it's none other than the exchange of gases. Means it is a sort of breathing given the name of respiration. So you guys don't have to be confused regarding this, and this is important from your subjective test point of view. So friends, after the definitions comes this diagram. So in this diagram we have complete structure of how gaseous transportation takes place over a body. So these are lungs, and this is a heart. Heart is a four chambered in human beings. And जो ये है ये complete बहुत complex type है. Like this is lungs की capillaries, pulmonary capillaries. And here we have in lungs, we have alveoli, which I have not depicted here. But at the alveoli level, external respiration takes place, as I told you in the definitions. So O2 takes place, comes inside through the lungs, not just through one lung as I've depicted. I've just depicted it for your comfort, so that you can understand it very easily. It doesn't become hodgepodge. So it's O2 comes inside through the lungs, into the lungs through nostrils, and then bronchioles and bronchi and all. Then after that we have CO2, which exits through the same pathway through which oxygen enters. After that we have our lungs. So our lungs are having these capillaries because they are also made up of cells and tissues. So they have these blood capillaries. Most of them help in the exchange of oxygen and CO2 between blood and alveoli. So at the alveoli, external respiration takes place. Then the pulmonary vein carries the oxygenated blood from the lungs to the heart, and heart pumps it to aorta, which is the primary main artery. It divides into arteries. Aorta divides into arteries, which further divide into arterioles. Arterioles divide into a network of blood capillaries, which carry on the blood oxygen from the blood, oxygenated blood, into the cells of a body, different cells. After that, inside the cells, the exchange of gases is called as internal respiration. It's not because external respiration takes outside the body and internal respiration takes place inside the body. Both take place inside the body, that's it. But external respiration takes place at the alveoli. It is just having a connection between the surroundings through bronchi and bronchioles and all. So that's why we call it an external respiration. It is connected with the cells. So cells on the formation of ATP release out CO2. The CO2 is transferred into the venules. Venules further form veins, and veins form the vena cava. The deoxygenated blood reaches the venules via our blood capillaries. Again, they form a network which combine to form venules. So that is all about the mechanism of internal respiration. Then the vena cava transports the deoxygenated blood to our heart, and heart, with the help of pulmonary artery, pumps that into our lungs, where it again gets oxygenated and gets transported over all the body. That's the whole mechanism of exchange of gases in a body. So girls and guys, we are done with the sketch of respiratory system. Now we are to study the anatomy of respiratory system. Anatomy is the internal structure. So to study the anatomy of respiratory system, I have divided it into many parts for your easy convenience. First of all, we have the facial part. So it doesn't look like a face, I think. But never mind, my drawing is quite bad and you will have to go with this one only. I don't know why I would have tried to improve my drawing skills before coming into the field of biology. But I'll try to do it, doesn't matter. But till then you will have to go with these ugly sort of drawings and diagrams. So this one is an eye that depicts it as face. So I've drawn it so that none of you thinks that I've not drawn a face but something else. So let's start. So we have here external nostril. सबसे पहले we take in air through our external nostril. So we take in air through this hole in the nose. There are two. I've drawn the side view so it doesn't appear, the second one, but one of them is appearing straight away. Refer to the second one by looking in the mirror and you will see two nostrils. Even everybody knows. So we have this external nostril here. So after external nostril, it goes into the nasal cavity. Nasal cavity is from this part to this part. This part is the upper palate of a mouth. Go stand in the front of a mirror, open your mouth and you will see a palate like roof-like palate in your mouth. So that palate has two parts if you look clearly into that. The front part is somewhat rough, having some kind of projections, and the part at the back is quite smooth. Why the front part is rough and back part is smooth and all, we'll learn this in digestion and absorption. So here we have nasal cavity. So the front part of palate is called as hard palate, because it has a rugae, that projections in our palate are known as rugae. Just do one thing, go pause the video in between, go stand in front of a mirror and open your mouth. Look at the front part of your palate, of your upper part of your mouth. You'll find some projections called rugae and the back part is soft. Or you can do one thing, touch your tongue to the palate above it. And you'll find the front part is quite rough and the back part is quite smooth. Behind that is uvula. Uvula, again, this time your tongue will not work. You'll have to go and stand in the front of a mirror. So go stand in the front of a mirror, or I have another idea for you. Open the selfie camera of your phone and just see. You'll find a projection like this, where your tongue ends. So that is uvula. Its function is that when we eat food, it covers the nasal cavity, so that the food doesn't go into the nasal cavity. Means if uvula would not have been there, what would have happened is you would have taken in food through a mouth and it would have gone out through a nose, and that is quite humorous, you know. So this uvula prevents that humorous work. After that, above our nose, you can't see this, I'm sorry, but you can understand, you can imagine you are going on a tournament of your respiratory system. You enter through your nose. Then you will find three structures called as conkai. The upper one is called as superior conkai, the middle one is called as middle conkai, and the lower one is called as inferior conkai. After that, we have external layers. You are not understanding each and everything. I think some things are there that you don't understand, but don't worry. I'll end this video making you understand each and everything. So layers are these are not the external layers, I think these are internal layers. Keep in mind. Doesn't matter, I wrote it wrong in flow, by the way, and you'll remember it. It's important from NEET point of view, and you have to remember it. Even it's important for your subjective exam point of view, but it's more important from NEET point of view, and they have been PYQs for layers. So we have internal layers. So internal layers refer to the nostril area after conkai and before pharynx. Pharynx, you all know, before pharynx, and after your nasal conkai, the superior, middle and inferior conkai, we come across internal layers. Layers are like nostrils, they are inside. Some places we call external layers as external nostrils as external layers as well. So you can closely compare nostrils with layers, but they are not exactly the same things. So this is all about the facial part of our respiratory system. So now let's proceed. So after the facial view, we have respiratory system, which comes from nose to lungs. So it consists of nose first of all. From nose, I refer to nostrils and nasal cavity as well. Then we have pharynx. After pharynx, we have larynx or voice box as we call it sometimes. Then we have trachea, which is the windpipe. It has cartilaginous C-shaped rings. We'll also study about this one. Then we have bronchi. Trachea divides into two bronchi, and each bronchus goes into each lung. Then the bronchi divides into bronchioles. That is also a specific number, 2 for one lung and 3 for one lung. Then we have bronchioles, just this all take place in lungs, so we have lungs. These further divide into further things, but in lungs we'll learn all about this, whatever happens after bronchioles, alveoli and all. So these parts are structurally divided into two zones. These all parts are structurally divided into two zones. So two zones structurally, because there are two on the two bases for division of these. So first of all we have structural and then functional. First we have structurally. So these are upper respiratory system and lower respiratory system. Upper respiratory system and lower respiratory system. This is all about the structural division. So the upper part includes nose, nasal cavity, pharynx and the associated structures. So we have nose, nasal cavity, the pharynx, and the structures associated to them. Structures associated. And the lower respiratory part divides from larynx till lungs. It includes within it bronchi and bronchioles. Also, functionally, it's divided into two parts. So, functionally, again we have two parts. Upper conducting zone. Upper conducting zone, that doesn't include any kind of exchange of gases, that just includes the intake or exchange, means the pathway for exchange of gases it acts as. So it is from nose till terminal bronchioles, nose to terminal bronchioles. What are terminal bronchioles? I'll tell you when I'll tell you the structure of lungs. So till then just cram it. After that we have lower respiratory zone. So we have lower respiratory zone. So this lower respiratory zone is from terminal bronchioles onwards, which comprises of respiratory bronchioles, alveoli, etc. So we have here respiratory bronchioles, alveoli. So structurally we have upper respiratory zone and lower respiratory zone. Functionally we have upper conducting zone and lower respiratory zone. So the divisions are on different bases. Here we have till pharynx and here we have till terminal bronchioles. So that's the main difference, keep in mind. On the top of all the differences, that is just on the basis of structure, and that is on the basis of the functions they perform, means conduction or acting as a pathway or a real exchange of gases. So as you all know, the structural classification doesn't have much importance more than all about anatomy, but it has what is the parts are more important than what are they called as in a group, but the function is more important, the functional division is more important. So we have why is upper zone known as conduction zone? Because conducting zone. Why is it called as conducting zone? Because I hope you understand my abbreviations. If you don't understand, then I'm speaking side by side, so it's not much difficult to know. As you are a regular viewer, if you are a regular viewer, you will understand it very soon. So because it is conducting air from outside to respiratory zone. So upper zone is called as conducting zone because it is acting as a pathway for traveling of air from outside till respiratory zone and of CO2 or other gases from respiratory zone till outside. 2 points to be noted about it are, first of all, it does not involve in any kind of gaseous exchange. No involvement in any sort of gaseous exchange. Means it's just about acting as a traveling agent for gases. So it doesn't participate in exchange of gases. Secondly, we have important thing to know is that its function is क्योंकि we have divided it functionally, so we need to know what its function is. So, except for providing a safe pathway for exchange of gases, it has exchange here. I don't mean exchange between blood and our respiratory system. Here it is exchange between environment and our lungs. So it provides us a safe pathway for exchange of gases between environment and lungs. Secondly, it is filtering. So second, its function is to filter warm and moisture and air. Filter warm means the body temperature and the temperature outside doesn't match each and every time. For example, we have gone in a desert in baking heat, or we are in Ladakh in scorching cold. So we need to have a kind of bond, a kind of balance between our air outside and so that we can breathe it easily. Otherwise, the disbalance between breathing a body and the air will cause a difference. So it warms. It warms means it balances the temperature of the air outside with the body temperature. Then it filters. Air these days, earlier times was a different thing where there used to be no automobiles or something which just caused air pollution. But now we have a lot of polluted air. Air has more number of polluted particles than gases. So here we have the air is filtered by this. Then the air is dry in most areas. So to travel, to be conducted easily through the pathway, it needs to be moistened. So they do all the things. They warm it, they filter it and moisten it to provide it as suitable air for our breathing purpose. That's all about what our respiratory zone, conducting zone does. So it is helping, means the air we breathe is detoxified, warmed, moistened and conducted by this conducting zone. So it's more important, 100 times more important than the lower respiratory zone, which does nothing else than exchange of gases between alveoli and our blood. So friends, after we are done with the facial part, here I am with the throat part. So throat part में जो anterior जो आगे वाला part होता है, that is esophagus. That is none other than a food pipe. Between esophagus, just behind esophagus, we have trachea, which is a windpipe which carries gases inside. Above trachea, we have larynx, and here we have epiglottis. So this epiglottis is the opening which is covered, which discriminates between esophagus and trachea. Larynx is, it's the final place where, which is the similar pathway for food and air. Food also goes through larynx and so does the air. According to their character, they are divided into trachea and esophagus. When we breathe, the epiglottis covers this esophagus so that the air goes straight into the trachea. And when we eat, the epiglottis covers the trachea so that food doesn't enter this. That's it. So friends, here I have a short note for you. It says that our nose is made up of cartilages and bones. It's mostly cartilaginous part. If you touch it, it's quite soft. So it is made up of cartilages and bones. Cartilages and bones both lie in connective tissue. Cartilage is somewhat soft, bone is quite hard. It is, again, we have two main points for this nose. It's quite important, so pay attention. First of all, what we have is, it opens outside through external nostrils. Opens outside through external nostrils. The two holes which are visible to our eyes, These are external nostrils. Then the second point to be noted about it is the nose is special organ for the entrance to respiratory system. Just assume that you are going on a trip to your nose. Our nose is quite very small, we can't enter, but just like the way we see in cartoons and movies, somebody has become so small by the blessings or by some chance. And now he wants to see what's inside my body. So it is, he'll enter through the nose. So it is specially organ for entrance to the respiratory system. That's the three main points of nose. First, it's made up of cartilages and bones, out of which are both connective tissues, out of which cartilage is smooth and bones are hard. It opens outside through external nostrils, and it is specially the organ for entrance to the respiratory system. So what we have inside the nostrils is nasal cavity, which is the nasal cavity is separated into two, which are called as by some structure called as nasal septum. So it is separated by nasal septum. Then the nasal septum divides nasal cavity into nasal vestibules. So what nasal septum does is divides the nasal cavity into nasal vestibules. Nasal vestibules. So the division of nasal cavity by the nasal septum is known as nasal vestibules. Then we have, after nasal vestibules, nasal cavity is lined by the nasal cavity lined by a mucous membrane. What's the function of this mucous membrane? Is to secrete out mucus. What does this mucus do? It warms and moistens the air. As I told you that the air has to be warmed and moistened in the upper conducting zone. And as you know, the nasal cavity comes under conducting zone, so it warms and moistens the air. So the mucous membrane warms and moistens the air. The other things now we have. It also continues in the spaces or sinuses in some facial bones. What are the spaces and sinuses we'll learn later on. So it continues in the spaces and sinuses. These spaces are called as sinuses, by the way. Spaces or sinuses should come instead of an. Just understand. So it also means the spaces are continued in some facial bones, which increases the surface area of nasal cavity. So what do these increase? The surface area of nasal cavity. And they are considered as these sinuses. What do they do is increase the surface area of nasal cavity and considered as resonating chambers. Considered as resonating chambers. Here is all about the spaces and sinuses. So there are three nasal conkai present in the nasal cavity. Some like this looking structure, like this and this and this. I drew in the diagram of a facial part of a respiratory system where you saw these kinds of things. And I told you that the upper one is called the superior conkai. So the upper one is called the superior conkai. The one in between is called the middle conkai. And the lower one is called the inferior conkai. I just told you about these three things. I also told you that we'll learn it later on. So this is later on. Let's start. So here we have nasal kunkai. So having this here is, first of all, what we have is, what they do. So they are dividing the nasal cavity into a series of groove-like air passage. They are dividing the nasal cavity into a series of grooves. You understand what grooves are, right? Like we have this, and like we have grooves in a doors. Just a groove is the most famous example of groove is a door opening and closing. Groove helps open and close the door. So here we have a series of grooves in the nasal cavity, which are being divided by superior, middle and inferior conchi, as I told you right now. Like air passage, grooves like air passage. Then they are lined by mucous membrane. Lined by mucous membrane. I said you in the starting of the video, and I'm saying you again. Each and every point in this video is important for you, either from the need point of view, either from the subjective exam point of view, or from both exams point of view. So you need to note down each and everything. So here, what does this mucous membrane do? This mucous membrane mixes water, that is moisture and warmth in air. Mixes moisture and warmth in air. This is the function of mucous membrane, as we did study in the nasal cavity. Nasal cavity is lined by this mucous membrane, and here these grooves are lined by the mucous membrane as well, because they are present in the nasal cavity itself. So then come the internal layers through which nasal cavity opens in pharynx region. So through these internal layers, nasal cavity means they are an intermediate between nasal cavity and pharynx. Through these internal layers, the nasal cavity opens into the pharynx region. Then the pharynx leads to oropharynx and laryngopharynx. Pharynx has three parts. For your knowledge, it's not important from a subjective exam point of view, but in it can it can be used in elimination purpose. Many people do solve the questions by elimination purpose. There it can help you. So we have nasopharynx, which is just attached to nasal cavity internal layers to connect the nasopharynx to the nasal cavity. Then we have oropharynx, as the name suggests. It's connected to the oral cavity. And then we have laryngopharynx. Laryngopharynx is connected to the larynx. So the pharynx is attached to the three parts of a body, that is nasopharynx, oropharynx and laryngopharynx. Then we have larynx, because pharynx or nasopharynx, oropharynx is just related to the digestive system, so it has no importance, no significance here. But here we have nasopharynx, which is attached to the pharynx, which pharynx leads nasopharynx into laryngopharynx. That's so we have a laryngopharynx which is attached to the larynx, so it leads to the larynx. Larynx is also called as voice box, right? So it is the voice producing organ. It produces voice which is later converted into speech by a tongue. So it is the voice producing organ. It is a cartilaginous structure, means it is contain cartilages. So it is a cartilaginous structure. It is made up of 6 types of cartilages. Six types of cartilages. It is located in the neck region. As you write larynx in the throat part diagram, so obviously it is located in the neck region. It is quite visible in males in the form of Adam's apple. So it is located in the neck region from 4th to 6th cervical vertebrae. So cervical vertebrae is from your neck part to your bottom part behind, in your back I mean. There are some kind of vertebrates. Invertebrates, when you studied vertebrates in your childhood days, you used to study, there's a like rib cage is attached to it. There's a like this structure, bony kind of structure where a rib cage is attached. So that is the cervical vertebrae, and it has services, not that one services, these are the services like this one, cervices, or you can call it for your convenience, but it is pronounced as services. So from the 4th cervix to the 6th cervix, we have the larynx. It is 6. We have the larynx. So this point is worth remembering. It's quite important and neat. So just to learn it quite easily. It's easy to remember these vertebrates, and this larynx is quite very important part. So as I told you not a minute back that the larynx is a cartilaginous structure. So let me also tell you what actually the cartilages of larynx are. So the larynx consists of 9 cartilages of 6 types. 9 cartilages of 6 types, out of which 3 single and 3 are double. That's all about cartilages of larynx. So these cartilages are 2 types, elastoid and hyaline. Elastoid and hyaline. Here I'll represent elastoid by E and hyaline by H. So please to remember the abbreviation. You guys are, I think, not used to abbreviations, but don't worry. Being with me will make you experts in abbreviations. So let's rehab. But please don't use it in your exams, because there your marks will be cut off because of these abbreviations. So there are 3 single and 3 double. So in singles we have epiglottis. The cartilages which are single are, first of all we have epiglottis. Then we have thyroid. It's not thyroid gland but thyroid cartilage. And then we have cricoid. These are the 3 cartilages. Out of these, we have epiglottis as elastrine cartilage, so it is elastrine, and the other two are hyaline cartilages. Then in double cartilages, we have arytenoid, corniculate, and cuneiform cartilages, which are present in pairs, out of which arytenoid is hyaline cartilage and corniculate and cuneiform are elastrine cartilages. So as you can see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 elastrine cartilages and 1, 2, 3 and 4 hyaline cartilages. So these are not important from the subjective point of view, but for your NEET point of view, these are not just important but more than important, because these are facts, and facts worth in MCQs. Another important point about larynx is it also contains a bone, that is hyoid bone. Hyoid bone does not show articulation. It's the important point about hyoid bone is it does not show articulation. You don't know what is articulation, right? So articulation is like connection of a bone with some other bone. So it is not connected with any other bone of body. So articulation is joining of a bone with any other bone of the body. So only hyoid bone is the one which does not join with any other bone of the body. But that doesn't mean that it is just swinging in the air and all. It is joined to muscles, but it is joined to muscles and cartilages. But it's not joined to bones, by the way. So if it's not joined to bones, then it doesn't mean that it's not joined to muscles and cartilages. It's joined to them. Means if it is not joined to any other bone, then it is not joined to any ligament as well, because ligaments are the one which joins bones to bones. So this is also the thing that it's not joined with any ligament as well.